I decided to do a prezi for today. Firstly, I will not go in any theoretical background information because I think you had enough for the last few days. I will be very practical. I will tell you some small different stories and try to connect them together in order to explain how the integration happened of migrants from Bulgaria and Romania in Brussels. I will share my presentation now with you. As a title, I choose to put the name the Roma, the city, and the integration process, because the city has its own specifics, which sometimes we don't encounter when we are working and doing social work, for example, or we are doing our researches. And this should be also taken like a huge part, that should be taken as a huge element, which can be from one side obstacle for integration, but it could be also a really huge opportunity for inclusion. Okay, let's try to move the slide somehow. Last week there was an article in one of the big Dutch newspapers, The Standard, an article about Roma, and the author of this article is an investigation journalist. I mean, who came to me with the question, Biser, I want to investigate. Actually, he didn't say that. He said, I want to write an article about Roma. But before going to meet him, I tried to research about him. And actually, all his articles were investigation, like, for example, the Belgian businessmen who are creating business networks in Congo in order to export illegally gold, you know, and sell it in Dubai, you know, this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, the first time we met, I told him, you know, I know we are investigation journalists. I mean, if it's clear, I mean, you can send me what you want to investigate and I will be very open toward you. And he said, okay, listen, I'm interested in the begging of Roma on the streets, and I want to see how does it function, how much do they earn, is it an organized network of people who are doing it? And I said, okay, let's try to find it together. And then I start the stories, you know, I told him about a lot income things from the communities, and at the end, the story that came out from the newspaper was very positive. I mean, it was not really an investigation of the banking network, but mostly investigation of the poverty. And what I saw actually in the article, and I got the feedback from other people's also, you know, it was like an article that it's also open-minded. Now, why I put it there? Because the article came out with very interesting title. Maybe as you are German speaking, also you could understand it. It's written in Dutch. It's that the last form of racism is the one we encounter today, the one that is against Roma. And what is it? I will go more concretely, but I will start from now on. I mean, during the holidays, the winter holidays, during the Easter holidays, you will often see on the main street of Brussels a lot of Roma who live there, who sleep there, who beg with their children. And then in the beginning you say, okay, it's poverty, people came to gain some money, and you give, and then you see that this process continues every year. And then you put the question, okay, Belgium is a country where there are different structures, and why these children, different age, starting from 0 till 18, are begging on the street? Why these children are not in school, but they are on the street? And then you start putting these critical questions and you don't get an answer. And then you say, okay, let's compare something. I mean, if you put a Belgian kid to beg with his parents, you know, on the street, be sure that within the 2 days, the kid will be surrounded by different social structures. And firstly, they will make sure that the family gets support. But if it's not the case to get the support, maybe the kid will be placed in a structure temporary until the family improves its own situation. But this doesn't happen to Roma. And the question is why? Firstly, I asked a few institutions, why you don't react, and they say, yeah, but we didn't get any complaints about it. I mean, we can react if we have a signal, And then I go a few years back because I live in Anderlecht also, and I used to work for the municipality of Anderlecht. We had the families that were living next to the canal, in very bad conditions, going to back during the day with the kid. And I was visiting them, and once I saw that the kids were in a bad health condition, I called to the structure that is taking care of kids. It's like a child consultation, because they have also the function to give a signal to institutions to make a claim. Yeah, they went, they realized, they made the claim, and then the police came, the kid was taken out from the family. And then, but still, a different structure continued to support the family in order to find job, to rent an apartment. This process took a long time. It took almost 2 years, but the family had access to their kid. And when the family was had their apartment, when the father had a job, the kid was given back to the family. But what also showed us this example, I mean, since this moment, you haven't seen any Roma begging there. And we had still people coming from the same community, to Belgium, to Anderlecht, but then it's changed a bit the way they were coming. Suddenly we start to see a father coming first and mother maybe getting into seasonal work, and then next year they could bring also the kids with them. Until then the kids were taken care by the grandparents. And so I'll go to the next slide, and I will make the link here. Who are the Roma in Brussels? Firstly, the Roma are not homogeneous group, as apparently already understood these days. The Roma are very diverse group. And in Belgium, we have firstly diverse group because they are coming from different countries, but then sometimes diversity goes to the small border of the village, of the city they are coming from. So in general, we have Bulgarian Roma, we have Roma from Romania, who came the last 20, 30 years. We have ex-Yugoslavian Roma who came during the Tito regime and in the years of 80s, in 90s. Then we have also Slovak Roma, and then we have Dom from Syria. There's a Roma coming from Syria who are also placed here. I will say a few words for each community. And then we have the oldest Roma group that live in Belgium and Brussels. These are the Manouche and Travelers. The Manouche are the first generation which moved to Belgium in 15th, 16th century, escaping the slavery in Wallachia, today Romania, Romania, and they settled up in Western Europe. That time, still Belgium didn't exist as a country. And then the Travelers are the Roma that moved toward Belgium from the Wallachia and today Serbia and Romania, but just at the end of the slavery, when they were liberated, they just chose to move to another country, and they came to Western Europe, and some of them were settled in Belgium. Now this Manouche and Travelers community, a part of them live in normal houses, but there is also a community that live in caravans. Now, living in caravans, it's accepted as a living space in Belgium. So you can live in a caravan, and it shouldn't be a problem for you. And the municipality public sector should assure that you have access to running water, electricity, and gas in the place where you are settled. But what is happening in the reality? We see that among the Manouche and Traveler communities, the level of education is very low. It's very rare to find a kid that have finished primary school, which means a kid that was in school until 12. It's very rare, and these are small numbers we can count on one of our hands. Why is that? We always ask the question and we get different answers, but if you go deeper, you will arrive to a very simple explanation. And this is, I take the case of Brussels. In Brussels, there are 19 municipalities. And these 19 municipalities, there was a call a few years ago to get funded in order to receive money, to create places, parking places for travelers communities. And then out of 19 municipalities, only one reacted. And they created a place for 6 families. But because of the management, the place was closed down after 3 years. Now, what are the people doing living in the caravans? They move to one place next to the IKEA. They stay there for 2 weeks, then the police comes and says, guys, you don't have a right to stay here, you have to move. And they move close to the Atomium in Brussels, and they stay there for 2 weeks, and then they come the police and says, guys, you cannot stay here for more than 2 weeks. And they move to Charleroi, next to the Charleroi airport. And then they say, okay, you have to move from here, you cannot stay a long time. And then they come again next to IKEA in Anderlecht. And so the people are in constant moving. Now this constant moving, it's a forced moving. Why? Because if you see in the Flemish part of Brussels, the travelers are settled. They live still in their caravans, but they are settled. They move maybe just once per year for a vacation to go somewhere in France or Germany or Sweden, but otherwise they are settled. So we have still the small community of travelers who travel because the society doesn't provide them infrastructure to be settled. And why is that? And this is because no municipality it's eager, there is no political will to get the Roma in their territory. And then I come to Romanian Roma. The Romanian Roma start to move to Belgium after 89, the first families and the big wave of Romanian Roma was after 2007, between 2007 and 2014. They settled in different quarters in Brussels. The quarters are Anderlecht, Schaerbeek, Saint-Jean, Molenbeek. And in Anderlecht in 2013, there was a petition signed by 1,300 citizens, which was petition against the presence of Roma on the square. And it was shocking. And that was a signal for the municipality of Anderlecht also to take something, to do something. And then they start to look for help from outside organization. And in 2015, they come up with the proposal to employ a Roma mediator. And I was one of the first one, to be employed by the municipality that time. Now there are more Roma employees there. Yeah, and then the participation of Roma was ensured because there was a problem. Now I ask myself, if there was no this petition, would it be the municipality so open also to employ Roma? This stays always a question, but we also afterward we saw if there are problematic places with Roma in any commune, in any municipality, then the next step is information session to educate the staff, but then a step further is also to start to engage the Roma in a public sector work. And we saw that it works. And the examples will come later. Then there are the Bulgarian Roma. The Bulgarian Roma follow the path of Romanian Roma. It's similar. what it's happened with the Romanian Bulgarian Roma in general. Firstly, the father comes, he finds a apartment to rent, then a job, and then when it's with a stable situation, a year after, he takes the wife and then the kids, and then the entire family settles up in Brussels. But still, we can go specifically to some communities. For example, you will see in Brussels people coming from Santana region, community. It's close to Arad. They come in Brussels, and their profile is people who've been always middle class, belong to middle class in Romania, and whenever they come here, they start immediately working in the cleaning sector, in the construction sector. They created their own companies as well. But then you have people coming from the region of Turnu Severin, from Gârla Mare, and these people, for example, are less educated, less qualified. I mean, no qualification at all. These kids had problem being in school, and so when we start to realize they come from the same villages. That time I was working as a school mediator. We said, okay, let's do something. Let's go. The kids from Santana didn't have any school problems. They were regularly at school. They were regularly also before in Romania. I mean, they get very good scores, but the kids from Gârla Mare, they had troubles. I mean, they were not staying to school, a lot of absenteeism. And then we went to Gârla Mare for a visit. We went to the school. Gârla Mare is dominantly Roma population. There are a very small number of ethnic Romanian. Then we went to the school and we met the school director and we asked them, okay, how many Roma kids are at school? And he said there are like 5 regularly coming children, the rest are not coming. And we said, is there any particular reason? And the director that time said, no, the school is open, they can come, and that's all. And we asked, do you do any efforts to go toward them, to try to bring them to school? Said, no, it's not our job. The building is here, the teachers are here, they are welcome. And that was all. And then we had the click, okay, we see now. I mean, firstly, the other side, the institution side, never made a step toward them to include them in the school system. And then the living in the community was the comfortable for them. So we knew what we have to do in Brussels also. We start more intensive interaction with these kids, more family visits, more convincing parents, you know, to keep the kids, more translation for them, mediation between school and parents. And 5-6 years later, we start to get a result. I mean, the register of the school absence really raised, you know. And now we have just certain number of families who still have troubles with school absenteeism. But the same we also saw with Bulgarian Roma. There were people coming from different places which were well integrated, also very fast in Belgium society, but there were also marginal ones. And then if we go and look in their place of coming, we realized that they were very marginalized in their place where they were lived in Bulgaria. Now, there is a very small difference between Bulgarian and Romanians. The people that were coming from Bulgaria were mostly Roma from northeast of Bulgaria, where there is also a huge Turkish minority, and then the Roma also spoke Turkish language. And then for them it was easy to integrate it within the Belgium system through the Turkish community. It was easier to find houses, easier to find jobs in the restaurants and snack bars and during places. And then is the same path, you know, the father, the mother, the kids, and entire family. What the people are working, the women are mostly in the cleaning services. We have even like high qualified Roma women with university degrees who come here, who are unemployed in Bulgaria and Romania. For example, teachers education, or nurses. They enter here, they start working as a cleaning staff, and then they earn around 1,500 per month. And they never, you know, go really they really learn the language. For them, you know, gaining enough money to take care of the family was enough, and they always maintain it in this cleaning domain. Then we have a lot of people who work in the factories. For example, if you go to Lidl in Belgium and you go and buy packages of apples and you see the name of the company that packaged the apples, and you research further, you will see that the company that it's collecting and packing the apples, it actually has 90% employees Roma from Romania, the seasonal workers. Then if you go to Colruyt and you buy a bio salad, you know, cut it in pieces, and you see the company, Van der Zeepen, for example, then you go and among the Roma community and you look where the most of the people work, you will see that the half of the employees of this company are Roma, who are cutting the salads, the fruits, and they are making the contributing to the production. Then we have another community, which are the Dom from Syria, the Syrian Roma. About them, firstly, they were not direct target of the war. I mean, what was the target of in Syria were the administrative buildings, you know, of bombing. There were production places. But then why the Dom people start to move? Why the war was danger for them, as for everyone, and why they were so easily accepted also. I speak about case of Belgium. Apparently, they were no direct target of the war, but we know that their living places were in the margins of the cities. And when I say margin of the cities, they were living next to the industrial zones in Syria. And being next to the industrial zones, and the industrial zones were the one to be bombed in the beginning. So from this reason, they were really not the direct target of bombing. So when you come here and you say I'm Dom, then you can get easily, you could get easily the fast refugee status. But then with the case, I mean, we had also troubles. For example, we realized that many Dom from Syria, they never had registered in Syria. They never been to school. We had cases people didn't have really a setup of story, you know, setup of chronology. They didn't have this notion of chronology, when happened when. So very often the wife and the husband will tell the same story, but they will put different events in different periods of the time. And this brought, so we get positive answer for the husband and negative answer for refugee status for the wife. And so we were trying to explain to the structures, to the institutions, that actually, as people were never been to school, for them there were some important life events and everything was around them. But you know, it worked. But also among the Syrian Roma, we found some individuals who were like a person who is a lawyer, for example. He was a lawyer there, young guy, finished law, and he started working here. But we also saw in the community people walking with the bag with instruments, going from family to family to repair their teeth. And actually, this is one of the traditional jobs of Dom people in Syria, you know, reparation of teeth, making teeth, being a non-educated dentist. And 2 years ago in Lille, in the stomatology department, one of the students with the highest score who finished was a Syrian Dom guy who come from exactly this community of dentists, for example. Yeah, this is about Syrian Rome. Now with the Syrian Rome, we see the same mentality, the same problematic with Roma from Romania in Bulgaria in the years 2000, 2004, 2006. So the same path is continuing. Then we have also Slovak Roma. What is happened? The Slovak Roma is a very specific community. They come from the area of Košice in Slovakia, and when they come with the entire family. And this brings a lot of troubles, because when you come with the entire family, you cannot find immediately apartment, you cannot find immediately job. And we still have families who are moving from shelter to a shelter already 10 years, Slovak families. Now, Slovak families, you will never see them going to back. I mean, they are a bit different from Romanian and Bulgarian Roma. They don't have this mentality that the begging could be also a way of earning money. But then I had the case of translation for Slovak parents for kids who were put in a school, and the teacher wanted to bring very positive message to the parents, saying, you know, your kid is doing well, you know, great. There is one small thing, so you have to take care of it. And the mother said, what is the problem? And said, you know, you should make sure that the kid gets a sandwich from a piece of bread, you know, with the salami or cheese, but please don't put chips, don't put chocolate, because your kids very often comes with the chips to school. And then the other kids want to get chips as well. And then the mother said, yeah, but we live on the street, you know. And what we do, we look in the garbage. And often we find, you know, half package of chips, and then we give it to the kids when they go to school. And I was like, oh my God, what is it, you know? And then the solution was the school decided to provide, you know, a breakfast for the kids at school and warm lunch, you know, for this community exactly. And then I took the same family and we said, okay, let's go back, you know, to the center where you stay. And one of the kids knew all the stops of the tram of the metro. And I was like, how it comes the kid knows by heart all the stops? And then the mother says, you know, during the night we sleep in the shelter, but during the day we cannot stay in the shelter. So we are doing the trips with the metro, with the tram the entire day. And that's why the kid learn all the metro stops by heart. And then we have also the ex-Yugoslavia Roma who came from today North Macedonia, Serbia. They came in the 80s and 90s. Today they are not so visible. A few times I used to see young people talking among each other in Romani, and as a linguist I realized that is coming from this region. I was like, where are you from? They said, we are Belgium. I said, no, but you speak Romani, you are Roma. From which country you come from? Then they said Serbia. I mean, they are well integrated. The kids are regular of school. But now with the ex-Yugoslavian and the Roma community, we also discover another tendency. The young people start to rediscover their identity, because they pass the time, you know, hiding their identity, pretending they are not Roma, their parents mostly. But now their kids, which are 18, 20, 22 years old, they start to look more about their roots. What does it mean to be a Roma, you know? And we see more and more ex-Yugoslav Roma to get into the cultural activities, trying to rediscover their identity. And I put a house on Bulgarian Roma because when I arrived in Brussels, the first thing that happened was I called my friends here. Why? Because I was working in community development sector in Bulgaria. I was working for an NGO, and suddenly in 2008, 7, 9, we realized that we are losing people. The activists we were teaching, we were making trainings for them who became the activists in the communities. Somehow they escaped. They were not there. And then when I moved to Belgium, I found all of them here. And I called them and said, I'm looking for a apartment. They said, you don't have to take care about it. We have a place for stay. They rented apartment for me. They paid my first rent even. Yeah, and then I start working. But in the house I entered, the first day they told me, Biser, first, we know you are activists, you know, you work about us, you know, for our communities, but please don't say to anyone, to our landlords, that you are Roma, because we never say that we are Roma. And it was like, wow, why is, I mean, not being opening for your identity means you have fears. And that is an issue to work on. And then further, I start living in Brussels, yeah, meeting this different Roma, learning about them. Then with the years, I start to see more how the integration works here. Firstly, the Roma and the migrants from Bulgaria and Romania were not the first one in Belgium. Belgium has a long story of migration. And it started with the Italian migrants in 50s after the Second World War, with the migration of Jewish before that. And then we had the migration of work contract with the Turkish and Moroccan states for importing workforce from these countries. And then we have the ex-Yugoslavia people. And then the third one, the last wave, was the East Europeans coming from Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovakia. And then now the last one is with the Syrian. Now, then there is already the last 60, 70 years, there was a settled up integration structure. And I mean, I can bring also how does it function, but for me, from my perspective, there are few elements. I'm sure you heard them during the presentations the last few days, but I will go through them. I mean, the first element, which is very important, as the Roma coming from Bulgaria and Romania, the first element they say as a reason is the lack of employment in Bulgaria and Romania. That is the lack of work. But behind this lack of employment, there is also the stereotypes, the prejudice, the discrimination that comes together to it. And then the first very important element is employment here. And employment often was the black market. Then with the years, it was they could work only with as a freelancers, and then they could have right to work as an employed person. But here I wanted to go back just when we speak about work. I lost my thought. Let me see. Yeah, the work is one of the important elements. And then based on the work, you start to earn money, and the other things which come is the housing. You know, I didn't put the housing because very often housing goes with work. Very often we have also cases where you can get a flat, you can live there, and you can work for the same person where you live. These are very much cases. But then also the first migrant that came, they also created their own network, and the new one that were coming were already welcomed by adults, by the first migrants. So the access to work was with the years is more difficult in 2004, and then very easy in 2016. And if you come today as a Romanian and Bulgarian, it's even easier because there is a really informal setup created for absorbing the workforce. You know, it's very easy to find work. Then a second element for me was the language. I mean, if you want to go out of the closed community life, if you want to go out of the low wages payment, then you should access the bigger market. And to access the bigger market, you should learn the language. And the language here is provided by different structures, but very important are the integration structures in Brussels. There is a French speaking and Dutch speaking. It's in Burgering, Bonn, and the French speaking is Via. I mean, what you get there, you enter, you get French classes or Dutch classes almost for free. And then you can also enter the social system, get some small amount of money, you know, to maintain your family. But still having a work, having a house, speaking the language are not enough to feel yourself integrated. I mean, then what you do, you work, you gain money, you feed your family, you send money back to Romania and Bulgaria, but still you don't feel yourself integrated. You are as a foreigner living here, you don't feel yourself part of this society. And then the next element is important, and that is the access. Once you come without residence permit here, you know, the first thing you receive is two rights. The first right is a right to get health services, urgent medical help. And the second right is access to education for kids with or without any documents. You don't need to register, you don't need to have any documents. Only your national passport is enough to go to school. These are the two basic rights you immediately receive once you are on the territory of Belgium. And what means health service? It's when you come here, once you prove that you stay on this territory, the social service, it's obliged to give you a medical card which cover your medical expenses. Why? Because one night stay in a hospital can cost you between 800 and 1,200 euro. So these two rights are guaranteed. And then slowly with registration in the municipality, with finding job, you receive more and more rights. You get your social rights, you get your rights as if you get unemployed, and so on. Then this third element, access, it's very important to say in the process of integration. And for me, the last element is the element which often comes after 5 or 10 years living in the country, is the element of participation. What does it mean, participation? It has different domains you can participate. It can be just in local community of being part of a group of local community. It can be also participation in a small NGO, in local NGO. It can be participation in the local women group. It can be participation in more structured structures, like being part of a syndicate, being part of a political party. Then once these four elements are fulfilled and partially, for example, you have work, you have access, you speak one of the official languages, and you take part in different structures, I mean, you can already say, you know, I feel myself integrated in the Belgian society. Otherwise, if we lack one of these four elements, very often people are maintaining with the sense of, okay, one day I will go and live in my country. And staying in this, I will go and live in my country, firstly, never makes you to settle up in Belgium, but then you don't really, you are not even part of your own country where you come from. So making this participation links into the local society helps you easily include in the life here. Why I say it's problem, you know, thinking I will go back to my country, because the kids are growing here. Many of the kids doesn't speak the national language. They don't know Romanian, they don't speak Bulgarian. I mean, they speak French, Dutch, Romani, and other language, English, but they don't speak Bulgarian and Romanian. And for them, if the parents by force bring them back to their countries, then we'll have another problem. We should reintegrate those kids that hold the nationality of Romania and Bulgaria. So I see more and more tendencies, the people to settle up here because they start now buying houses. This is the tendency for the last 5-6 years. A lot of people in Schaerbeek, Anderlecht, in Flemish part, in French part, became owners of apartments, of houses in Brussels. Go further. What is offering us Belgium when we come here? It offers us jobs. It can be on the regular market, but it can be also on black market. Belgium offers us also begging possibilities. I mean, begging is not forbidden in Belgium, but is not illegal. There are a few legal frames. Yeah, for example, you cannot beg actively. What does it mean? You cannot beg actively, and you can be punished for it if you go behind the citizens and you ask them the money. then it's a problematic. But if you stay on the same place and you ask people and the people give you voluntarily, then you can do it. Another element is that you cannot back with children who are in the age of scholarization. The obliged age to go to school is from 5. Then if your kid is 5 years old, you cannot back with the kids. But in contrary, if you go to the center of Brussels, you will see many kids. I mean, for me, it's unfunctionality of the structures. I mean, and this is what I'm targeting in the last few years, you know, to try, because if you have a social workers who are Belgians and they start to say, you know, no, the institution should take care of Roma as well, then they have always this fear, oh, the Roma will react against us. But then now I hear more and more institutions saying, oh, you are Roma and you are reacting this way. I mean, it's not something expected, you know, because sometimes we, the Roma, we have to push the institution to do their work they supposed to do and to treat us equally, because not treating us equally as white kids, for example, begging on the street, for me, this is a signal of racism. Then Belgium offers us very different forms of education here. And very often when we have kids that doesn't want to go to school, there are also flexible forms of scholarization, which are like working 3 days and studying 2 days, you know, after age of 14. There are many kids that are choosing that. We're choosing it in the last few years, but now we see that more and more kids prefer to stay and maintain in the regular school system, because in the regular school system they get a diploma. But when doing this alternate scholarization, they don't receive a diploma, but just a qualification. And diploma means more payment. I mean, higher degree you have, more you are paid. Then many families also join their families here and they receive a status here. And there is another thing, which is the social welfare. Once you enter in Belgium, there is the system of, you know, if you don't have incomes, but you have your residence permit, you can access the social system and you ask for social welfare. And there is something that I wanted to share it with you. I used to work with social workers and also making exchanges with the social workers from Bulgaria and Romania. And usually they say, yeah, but you give this money social welfare, but they became lazy and they expect only social welfare. They were doing it also in Romania. And then the Belgian colleague said, listen, I mean, let's don't think like you do in Bulgaria and Romania, because we have also another philosophy, he said. Now, you are a migrant, you are coming here, you don't know the language, you don't have qualification, so we have to prepare you for the labor market. So we can give you, we give you 1-year contract with the social welfare, you receive money, cash every month, and we oblige you to go to study. Good. You want to play, because for you getting a social welfare, it's like you catch the devil, you know. And then you receive the social welfare. Sometimes you go to school, sometimes you don't go. And then next year you ask again for social welfare. And then the institution say, okay, we will give you again, but you should go to school. And you go to school 1 month, 2 months, and then you stop, you don't go, but you receive your social welfare. Third year is the same. But in 5 years, you earn somehow the language, because you are pushed, you get also qualification. And then the social welfare system says, okay, we have a possibility for you to work. If you receive a social welfare, which is 1,300 as a family, but we can provide you work and you can get 1,600, 1,700. And then people are pushed to work. But once you are on the employment market, then you see that while working, you can access also a credit system. You can get a credit and buy an apartment, and you can become owner. And then many people pass through the social system to the employment, and then they bought property, And then somehow, then they said, okay, but if we are family and we depend on the social welfare, we will earn 1,300 per month. But if the husband works and the wife works together, they can bring into budget approximately 3,000 euro per month net. As we know that in the Roma community, the money is something very, has a big value. You know, it became like a gearing point for Roma to get toward the employment. And now I would say that the people who are staying on the social welfare, comparing to the population of Roma that migrated here, it's very low. Then the social welfare, very often we are blamed, yeah, the Roma get social welfare in Western Europe, that's why they stay there. For me, it's just a transit period until you arrive to stability. And we should watch it a bit wider, because when you work, you also pay taxes. And whatever you get as a social welfare within the first 5 years, be sure you give them back in the case the next 5 years in the common budget. And this budget goes for the pensions, you know, and we know that the European population is also aging. So this kind of investment in the Roma community also will give us the results in few years. And then there is also affordable quality health, because what we often hear from the people saying, when we go to hospital in Romania and Bulgaria, we have to give a lot of money cash to doctors to take care of us, to nurses. And here, you will be never asked for money, and you will be seen as a very bad sign if you give money to someone in the health system here. So for the people, firstly, it's very affordable, but you get also very quality health services. And I want to go back to the jobs element. Something I wanted to tell you. Years ago, I was doing a research for internal use of the World Bank. And then during one of the focus groups, one guy told us, you know, if we wouldn't come to Belgium, today we would be in the prison in Bulgaria. I just like, why? He said, you know, we were unemployed, no opportunities for work. Often we start going and collecting iron, or you know, getting iron, stealing cables and selling them in order to get money. But it was also dangerous because you could enter in the prison. That was what we were doing there. And today in Belgium, thanks that we moved to Belgium, because today we have our work, we have our apartment, we have our dignity, and there is no risk that we go to the prison. You know, for me, that was very strong message for the people, why it brings them to migrate and how the migration works on them. Yeah, and this is what brought the people to migrate. It's lack of incomes. Very often it's lack of respect in the home country, and then is very limited opportunity, because lack of opportunities. Now here I have to make a bracket, because opportunities when you come from a city are bigger, but what we see also, the bigger migration toward Belgium, it's from the rural areas from Romania and Bulgaria, where the work opportunities are very limited, not only for Roma, but also for ethnic Romanians and Bulgarians. And when I speak for Romanians and Bulgarians, the same apply to Roma and to ethnic Romanian and Bulgarians, because sometimes they share the same features here. But still, there is a slight difference when here we don't see the ethnic Romanian and ethnic Roma and ethnic Bulgarian to mix among themselves. This division between Roma and Bulgarians, Roma and Romanians, maintain also here. Yeah, and what Belgium provides us? Belgium provides us safe incomes. There are a lot of job opportunities. There are opportunities for qualification, which are very accessible also. And then there is another element, which is respect that you receive. And here I'll tell you the story. The first day I arrived here, I used to go to Sofia, to the city. I'm coming from Bulgaria, from a small village, but I used to go because of my work to Sofia. And when I've been to Sofia, we were taking the public transport. And when I'm in the public transport, a few times it happened to me with the friends, and they speak in Romani among us, and then we suddenly get people watching us and comments, you know, it's Bulgaria here, you have to speak the national languages, what you are talking. Firstly, I never thought about it when I was in Bulgaria, but once I arrived in Belgium, I entered the metro in Belgium with my Roma friends, and we were speaking in Romani, and suddenly I realized that no one is watching us, and no one is making comments that we use our mother tongue. And many people share this feature also. They say, I mean, here in Brussels, in Belgium, we feel ourselves humans. And then back in our countries, because of our identity, we felt humiliated humans. And this is also an important element in this integration process for me. Now, what we see here, we see a lot of success stories also. Today, we can speak about the second generation of Roma migrants from Romania and Bulgaria. These are kids who were born here or who arrived here in a very early age, at the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 10. Today's the kids are grown-ups. They are 20, 30 years old. And this is the second generation of Roma coming from Bulgaria and Romania, who speak languages. They speak French, Dutch, and English, sometimes Dutch and English, sometimes French and English, and they are compatible on the labor market. Now they have the choice to choose what to work. We have Roma who work in the hospitals. We have Roma who work as nurses. We have almost in each of important communities Roma who work as social workers. We have few Roma who work in the banks here, in the back offices, you know, people with university degrees. And this for me, it's these are the success stories. We have also people who are generation that has skills. Some of them have been to school, some of them drop out from schools, but still they develop different skills living in this multinational environment. You know, sometimes just living among other different people also brings you another social capital. You develop another social experience, and it helps you very to integrate easy. And here I'll tell you a story about a Roma kid from Romania who was traveling with his parents to Italy, and then to France, and then to Belgium, in each country for a few years. And when he arrived here, I had to make him inscription in a school. And then I saw the kid is clever and he had good scores. I said, okay, let's make inscription for you, not in the not marginal, but local school. Let's choose a school where you have more Belgian kids, you know, white kids. Let's experiment with you, because the risk for him to drop out was very low. And then we made an inscription, and 2 months later he came to me, and it was very good school, you know, one of the best schools in Brussels. He came and he said, Biser, I want to change the school. I said, why? I see your scores are very good. He said, yeah, but you know, all my classmates, they are kids. I don't feel I'm on the same age with them. I mean, still they are playing video games, you know, and for me, I have other dreams. I have dreams to sell cars, you know. I want to school and I want to be a seller of cars, but not like my father on the street. I want to work in the auto salon, you know, to sell cars. And my classmates, I mean, they are busy with childish things. And for me, that was things that we don't encounter always in the school. That was the social experience these kids of age of 12, 13, 15 that gather during their traveling through different countries, meeting different cultures, you know, meeting different people. And then what I realized that these kids, they have also very achievable dreams, very concrete dreams. They say, I want to be this. And they, this second generation, they can easily construct the way to achieve their dreams. I mean, these are my my own kind of observation of these kids. And here I bring some examples. One is, the first one is Roake. Roake works as, he studied here. He speaks French, Dutch, Romani, and Romanian also. He works as a Roma mediator here, but at the same time, he is a third-year student in law. Roma from Romania, who I wouldn't, he comes from the rural areas. And for me, I'm not sure if he would stay there, he would have the same opportunities, you know, to get in the law school here. The second one is a advertisement of a restaurant. It's a pizza restaurant of a guy who I knew from Bulgaria, who used to be one of our youngsters, you know, when I was working there. And suddenly I found it here. He was working in the factory, for this famous factory for fruits. And then a few years ago, he bought a restaurant, he opened a pizzeria, and this is one of the successful businessmen in the area, in the quarter. I mean, he has the quality productions, and he has a good sales. And the third photo is an advertisement from 2015 about an action. Actually, in Anderlecht, there is an organization which is called Culturehem. And the aim of this organization is to occupy the urban spaces. What does it mean? And how the Roma can be part of it, actually. I put the city that way. In Anderlecht, there is a huge place which is used only on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as a market, where fruits, vegetables, clothes, meat, everything is sold. And then there was an organization who decided to occupy the rest of the time this huge space. And what they did, they start to work with different youth organizations, youth structures, to occupy and to provide activities for kids. And so they contacted also me, and we organized a small youth group. These guys here are all Roma, and every Wednesday afternoon, they are making animations on this place. Some of them are cooking with the kids, some of them are they are studying in sports schools, they are doing football and wrestling with the kids on this place, and different things. So with this idea of occupation of the non-occupied urban spaces, we also try to include not Roma only, but also Afghani, other kids from different communities. So this is one of the next stages of participation, to show to people that, to the kids also, this is your space. You can do whatever you want with this space. We are owning it together for a certain time. These kids actually grew up now, and they have the regular occupation. I see Albert, who has company for cleaning. I saw Stilian, who is selling cars. I see the first guy who was a wrestler, but he studied in a school for electricity, and now he has company for providing electricity networks. Yeah, and these are all guys who tasted this participation, inclusion, and now they created their own business. They don't think about going back to Bulgaria and Romania. They see their future here, and Bulgaria and Romania for them is the destination for vacation. Probably their kids will be the one who will want to go back and live there. I mean, seeing what's happening with the other migrant communities in Brussels. Let's continue. And for me, if I want to, I said, okay, how does it function this way, you know, how do you arrive? And for me, it's like firstly arrival, orientation, and it was mostly in years of 2000, just after 2000. And then we start to have the economic participation, but on a certain moment we start to have this identity redefinition. Why? Because in the beginning, for the Roma was very important to hide their identity as Roma, because they had always the fear that they won't be accepted. But then suddenly the Roma became something very fashionable, you know, and then it helped also the Roma community to redefine its own identity, you know, what is to be Roma, and how you can live in a bigger society as a Roma. Then I put 2022 creation of structures, taking part of the structures, you know, because today we have 10 Roma non-governmental organizations working on a very local level. We have small Romanian Roma organization that have kids activities. We have Bulgarian Roma organization. We have organization which is called ESMA does cultural activities and brings the songs of Esma Recepova further. And then we have also structured organization that do the international exchanges of young people who has Roma profile. And then we have also Balkan Roma LGBT organization, which is also very active. I mean, Anna mentioned in the beginning about Balkan LGBTQI structure, where I take part as well, and they are member of the umbrella organization. They published a book with 8 Roma stories from Balkan countries, and in this book you have a story of a Romanian Roma who was adopted by the Romanians and then brought to Belgium. And when the day came to do the coming out that the guy is gay, the same day he got a message from Facebook from his biological sister, and he realized he is also Roma. And then when he came to his parents saying, you know, to make the double outcome come out, the parents reacted very strange. They said, look, we accept you are a gay, but please don't mention you are Roma. And then we have other stories like story of a lady, intersex lady, who is 55 years old. She doesn't have access to her health dossier file in Bulgaria, and she doesn't know what has happened with her, as today she is in a trouble with her own identity. And we brought on the stage also this particular more marginalized group within the Roma community. So for me, creation of different structures links to Roma, it's very important achievement and success in this development process. And I assume in 2030 we will have like few Roma also participating in different political parties, and we will arrive also to the stage of political participation. Why not think Roma active in the local councils, for example, in the city? And then I don't know if I'm okay with the time. Okay, I go further. And for me, there are things that still we don't have answers, but which are important. For example, like who will be the Roma in 2050? How we will define the Roma? How they will look like? Are we going to be just Europeans, or are we going to have still this strong identity coming from inside, or we will have still this identity imposed by outsiders? You know, the gypsies, the Tsigan, the Zigeuner. Another thing is what will cost us as a society if we don't share our goods also with Roma? Because in the core of anti-Tsiganism, anti-gypsism, for example, is the not sharing of our goods with Roma. And I'll give you very simple example. It's you take a small village, which has very limited budget, and the main street is done with asphalt, but the small streets are not. And then the small municipality decided to invest in building roads. And then you have Roma living, half Roma, half non-Roma in this village. And then the mayor decided that we'll make the streets in the non-Roma part of the village. Is it anti-Gypsyism or not? For me, it is. Because for me, the goods the services should be shared equally among all the citizens. And for me, if I will be the mayor of this small municipality, I will make maybe part of the roads in the Roma quarter and part of the roads of the non-Roma quarter, so I can share and improve the infrastructure equally in the both for the both citizens. You know, I mean, if we don't do it, where do we will arrive? You know, then what is going to happen also with Roma identity? Is it going to be left back, or it will be stronger? Are we going to have also Roma nationalists? Because among us, the Roma woman, the Roma young, we already see the elements of Roma nationalism. And how we can go to encounter this, how we can frame it, this nationalism, and how we make sure that we don't end up in the trap of becoming extreme nationalists. Because these are the things that can happen, and we saw it already with other marginal communities. Well, bro, I mean, we have the Moroccan communities where we have the fraction of young Moroccan who became Moroccan nationalists, and some of them left for Syria for the war, you know, join Daesh. I mean, these are the questions, issues that will come up, but we have to foresee them and preventively take action from now and not wait until the moment comes. Another things, how the gender roles will be redefined in the Roma community, as we know that Roma communities was very patriarchal so far. The man was working out of the family to bring money, and the woman was mostly busy in the family. But today we see the opening of the women also to the labor market. And here I tell you the story. A few years, I think in 2012, there were a local election, and one of the Bulgarian Roma ladies said, okay, I will be, she has a small company for cleaning. She said, okay, I will be a candidate for the local councillor, but she knew very well that she will never be in the council because the number of the votes is very limited to bring her there. But what she knew, that she can play with it. Now, I'm not saying that it should be the things that to be done, but it's one of the things that we saw that happened. Then she negotiated with the political party that she will be on the last position on the political party. She will bring certain number of votes, but then in back she said, I would like to get 3 buildings that will be cleaned by my company. And the political party entered in the force. She got 3 buildings to clean, and she employs around 10 women to clean in the company and to get payment for it. Then for me, the role of the woman is changing. I mean, we are not anymore the patriarchal community. And the other question is for me, how the poverty will look like in the future. Are we going to redefine the poverty? Because if we speak for poverty in centuries ago, like lack of money, lack of food, today when we speak about poverty, we speak about lack of information, lack of networks, lack of access to different services. Now, I think the poverty further will be redefined, and yeah, we can contribute to it with other elements. And I think here, yeah, it's the last part. I think here I will stop, and I will let some time for putting also questions, for letting you ask me questions.